to the International Climate Webinar Series Industry Interview, a 10-minute fast-paced Q&A with international leaders and experts. All right, fasten your seatbelts for this electrifying introduction. Meet Alan Pierre Steven, an international expert who's journeyed from Belgium across the US, bringing over 50 years of high voltage experience in the electric power industry. This former CEO and CTO of multinational companies and utilities is a guru in everything from real-time grid management to nuclear power plant simulators, and he's even got 7 patents in advanced demand response under his belt. Now, as a CEO of his startup, Energy One Solution International, Alain is driving innovation for decarbonized future. Get ready for insights charged with global perspectives. Welcome, Alain Steven, with us today.
Thank you, Salima. Thank you for having me. Is it okay if I don't wear any seatbelts?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, welcome. Let's
All right,
start.
so let's move.
Let's start. Okay, batteries, the overrated heroes or the rock stars of the energy revolution?
No, they're definitely the rock stars. I see the batteries or any other form of energy storage as a key to the grid of the future.
Thank you. Biggest bottleneck to scaling up virtual power plant right now?
Well, there are a lot of bottlenecks, but some of those are being addressed by the regulators already. I think it's people understanding how their basically assets can be used and participate in a grid and get monetized to it. So it's a matter of education, policies, market design.
Thank you. Future of home energy, batteries in every garage or something else?
Something else. I don't think it's realistic to have batteries and solar in every home. It just takes too much time. It takes a lot of maintenance, and frankly, the companies are not able to keep up with the demand. I think the future resides in community microgrids that have shared storage and PV.
Oh, great. Thank you. Most surprising place you've seen batteries being used?
Well, frankly, in my garage, no, in my basement, uh, I, it's wonderful. Okay, it works well with the solar on the roof. It makes me resilient, but it makes me save a lot of money at the same time by providing energy back to the grid when it's needed.
Top 3 words to describe the future of energy storage. 3 words.
3 words, huh? Well, I think distributed energy storage is one thing.
Thank you.
Uh, thermal storage is another.
Great. We'll stop there. One quick policy change that could grid modernization.
That's a very loaded question. I mean, it's a continuous evolution in the policies that are starting at the federal level, at the FERC level, and that's being addressed. The FERC has issued a couple of years ago FERC Order 2222, which is basically facilitating the participation of distributed energy resources into the electricity markets, among other things.
Thank you. That then we call it evolution of the grid, not an evolution.
That would be more like that, yes.
Thank you. Next big breakthrough in batteries technology we should be excited about today.
Yeah, well, it's my personal feeling here. we're working with a company down under that has developed some exciting sodium-ion based battery product with a much higher energy density than what we have today. Um, this is one of the technologies I'm really excited about.
Okay, we'll see with sodium batteries in the future. Thank you.
Yeah.
How do we balance grid stability with the rise of distributed energy resources?
Well, the grid needs to be balanced every 2 seconds. So every time you flip a switch, you have to increase some generation somewhere or reduce generation somewhere else. So balancing the grid can be accomplished in two ways. You can inject electrons into the grid, or you can subtract electrons by reducing your load. And that's basically the theory behind it. So how can you do that? Well, by optimizing distributed energy resources. That includes energy storage, that includes distributed generation and load flexibility. And when you combine the whole thing, you can balance the grid or help the operator to balance the grid every 2 seconds.
What is the killer innovation or application for the energy and the grid that most people don't see coming right now?
Yeah, well, again, I wouldn't go and call it a killer innovation. I would say it's an evolution of technologies. One of the things that's happening today, obviously, is the leveraging artificial intelligence. That's certainly part of it. But anything that will help um, forecast the load and forecast the generation and optimize it. This is part of tomorrow's solution.
This
What I would call the killer innovation, maybe what I call an advanced virtual power plant, which is what we're doing today.
Great, thank you. For our last question today, if the grid could talk, what would it be its biggest complaint?
I would say, well, give me a break. It takes, we're talking about solving the issues by adding more transmission. It's just not happening that way. It takes a long time to build a new transmission line, between 7 to 10 years, more like 10 years over here in the United States, especially if the line has to cross multiple states. So that would be I need help, and I would welcome microgrids, to be coming in and help me getting the electrons through.
This is a great insight. The grid is in need in microgrid. We'll see in the few coming years. And until then, I give you, Anna Steven, I give you a rendezvous for May 22nd to talk even more with the other panelists during our third discussion on energy transition and power grid transformation by 2050 in US and North America.
Well, thank you very much, Salima. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello, good morning, and welcome to our international climate webinar series coming live for the African chapter, focusing on green transition and digital transformation. I'm Salima Ebashi Steven, ICWS Commissioner, and your host for today. We have a comprehensive agenda for you today, covering essential topics like the energy transition, carbon market, digital literacy, climate finance, and the role of women, with a particular focus on African region. We'll discuss this in the first part. Then we will open the floor for your question live. And at the end, we will wrap up and summarize key insights. Please join me today in welcoming our expert and guest who have made the time to be with us. First, Amel Makhlouf. Amel Makhlouf is an international expert in climate and sustainable energy, climate finance, and sustainable development. She is a coordinator and key expert for the European and UN programs. She brings over 20 years of leadership experience across Africa, Europe, and the Mediterranean, and also the Arab world. Thank you, Amel, for joining us today, and welcome. We are welcoming also Tracy Thompson. Tracy is a founder of the Code for Change. She is a former IBM tech executive who, after witnessing a lack of diversity in the industry, launched her non-for-profit to introduce underrepresented youth to STEAM careers. Thank you, Tracy, for joining us, and we are looking forward to your input on youth and digital literacy. We have also Sheila Bergen. She is innovative. She's in innovation-driven market director at the Digital Cooperation Organization (DCO). She is a Kenyan ecosystem builder, innovation strategist, and startup coach with over 14 years in African entrepreneurship and technology. We are waiting for Sheila to join us. She's traveling today. I hope she will get enough time and possibilities to join from Morocco. Finally, let me welcome our speaker and moderator for today. Gary Kainhoko co-develops strategic communications and stakeholder engagement. He is a communication and stakeholder management expert with experience in 39 African countries. Thank you, Gary Kai, for being today and for having these two hats as a guest expert and as a moderator. I'm happy to have you for the second time in this discussion. Gary Kai, before I hand over the mic to you and our guest, ladies, let me ask you a question. What innovative funding you think are proven successful for digital transformation in Africa's economy now?
Salima, thank you so much. Very happy to be here and happy to be here with all the other guests. I'm looking forward to an exciting discussion as we go forward. Just to answer this question very quickly, because I think, like you mentioned, the work that we're doing at CoDevelop is funding. And one of the things that we've realized is people are trying to de-risk. I'm sure we've seen what's happening in the world. Funding is becoming scarce and people need something de-risked. So you can't talk about funding across Africa's digital transformation without talking about blended finance, where we're bringing together public funds, philanthropic funds, and private sector funds just to be able to manage those risks. And we found that if we're able to do that as a philanthropic fund ourselves, we've realized that we're able to encourage a lot more investment. What I'll also just hazard and say is that one of the things that Africa is looking at and needs to continue to look at is to get Africa developed with African money. I think for so long, Africa has been looking globally in terms of aid or philanthropic funds. But I think the time has now come for Africa to be able to build on its development using African funds. And it's a long journey, but hopefully that journey can be realized within a good space of time.
Thank you, Garikai. And I will follow up with another question. Talking about fundings, during COP29, we saw a great news about $300 million as a fund for the developing countries to boost their green transition. What do you think about, first, the amount? Is it sufficient? And second, how to tap in this funding, and who can do it?
It's I think that's a powerful question and quite a pointed question. And this will be layered with my opinion. So pardon me on that. But the reality of it is that for Africa to have an equitable green transition, I think it needs a lot more than $300 million. And the numbers for Africa's digital transformation have been shifting upwards of $300 billion or numbers like that. But the reality of it is, if you take a look at public digital expenditure in 2022, we're looking at about, depending on who you talk to, around $650 billion globally. That means the amount of money that governments have spent on digital transformation. The top 23 economies have spent 80% of that, meaning that there's an inequitable amount of money that's being spent towards digital transformation. And as we move towards the green transition, the 300 billion would not cover that gap, because the reality of it is that there's a lot more money that's needed. The second thing is that it's important that the funds are not tied to any strings. And so the question then becomes, what governance strings are attached to this money? What outcomes are required? What resources are also attached to these funds? Which then makes it almost impossible for a good portion of the countries that need these funds the most to be able to access them. And so I think the reason why we need to be able to look at alternative sources of funding is because we need to be able to take a look at Africa's development in a different way, based on the needs of the multiple countries that we take a look at, the poorest countries, those that may need a lot more support and may not need the regular structured support that we ordinarily see. And so I think it's a good start. We will not sneeze at $300 million, but the reality of it is I think there's a lot more that needs to be done for Africa's green transition to be realized.
Thank you. I will give you the mic, and thank you for doing it live. This is the difficulty of live. We have a little bit of issue connecting all our guests, but I think we will be doing okay. Thank you.
So, Salima, thank you so much. And those were great questions to start. And hopefully they will get our thinking juices going and our creative juices flowing. I am going to start off just with asking a few questions to the panelists that we have. And I see Tracy first on my screen. Tracy, good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love the audience to get to know a bit more about you. So please just let the audience know a bit more about you. And also, in the same breath, answer a question in terms of how you see the green sectors growing from your experience, and hopefully that can be transposed into the African continent. Over to you, Tracy.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Garikai, as well as Salima. So I'm the executive director, as Salima mentioned, for the Code for Change. We are focused on digital equity and digital literacy programs here in the U.S. I started my career in tech since like 2000. I was at IBM and Ingram Micro, several tech companies. And I saw the need for representation in tech really many years ago that, really triggered this dream of mine to launch the Code for Change over 10 years ago. So, we're focused on providing access to tools as well as digital literacy. So we work with funders, we get donations of devices, we provide those to students in need, and we, provide digital literacy classes. So part of that digital transformation also in the US as well as global is green, the green economy and green tech. So some of the promising sectors, I think, for Africa, of course, is renewable energy because of the vast resources that are available on the continent. Wind, solar, there's vast amount of need there for reducing fossil fuel reliance, and the resources are there for wind and solar. I think also electric mobility, clean transportation. There's a large population of youth incorporating e-bikes as well as electric vehicles or other clean transportation modes of transportation. I think with all of these comes a huge opportunity for workforce development as well. So the workforce development component and building that into the green economy is a large opportunity for Africa.
Thank you so much for this, Tracy. And there's so much that you've unpacked there that hopefully we can tackle a bit later. You know, some people are saying that 60% of the jobs that are required for digital transformation have not yet been created. No one knows what these are going to be. That makes the work of the work that you're doing in terms of skills development and capacity building quite challenging, because you are building the aeroplane while you're flying.
Exactly. Yeah, I think AI is a great example of that, right? How we've pivoted so quickly with the use of AI. It's been around in research for years, machine learning, but really, I think for on everyday use and incorporated into our work, we see that now it's quickly going to replace a lot of the jobs that maybe we're used to, but also the opportunity is that it's going to introduce new jobs. So, people are asking as we have intro to coding classes, will we need these intro to coding classes, software development anymore? We have AI. Well, there's a need for development with AI, right? We need more people, diverse people using AI and machine learning, because we know that these tools can be biased because the input is based on the people who are teaching it, the models, right? So that's why representation is important. Like you say, we're coming up with new, the careers have not been even developed yet, but we have to have that foundational computer literacy built in so that we're ready for, the new career opportunities that may surface.
Absolutely. I think this sounds exciting, Tracy. And let me just bring Salima into the discussion a little bit. And Salima, just to get a sense of your thoughts around this, and perhaps you could even throw a question or two to both Tracy and myself.
Thank you, Karikai. Personally, I see that the digital transformation, let's go back a little bit at the basics. If we have this digital transformation ongoing, the most important things that Tracy talked about is about youth. And what we can see in Africa, or maybe Tracy will give us some inputs about US as a developing country in comparison to Africa, we see that we have a big issue in rural area regarding connectivity and internet access. And it doesn't mean we don't see a big development in application, in softwares going on in the region, but the access to this all digital technologies, it seems a little bit limited when it comes to rural area. I'm asking both of you, someone who is in Zimbabwe and our friend from US, where is the synergies in a positive or negative way? But we have to talk about progress, but we have to talk about challenges as well. I'm sorry to bring this to the table.
Sure. Well, I'll start first. Well, in the US, we definitely have the rural areas that lag behind the urban areas in terms of internet connectivity, specifically broadband right? So we have, there were a lot of initiatives under the Biden administration to actually invest in broadband expansion to make sure we had that digital infrastructure built out for rural communities. We saw the same thing in low income communities too, with access to the devices. The pandemic really shined a light on the disparities when it comes to the digital divide, which, you know, we've been talking about since I began in tech, but it really shone a light on that this digital divide still exists, and the gap is getting bigger between the haves and have-nots. So within rural as well as low income urban areas. So you see similarities there where high-speed internet still is lacking in a lot of rural areas, and there's need to be investments in public and private partnerships to make sure that we can catch up and maybe look at new technologies, satellite or others that are more maybe low cost, because building out that broadband infrastructure sometimes can be expensive.
Thanks for that, Salima and Tracy. I think I'll pick up on what Tracy said, because the similarities are quite interesting. Because when you do take a look at Africa, in your more remote areas, you've got similar challenges. Just firstly, in terms of providing access. You've got very remote areas. When you take a look at countries like Niger or Gabon, where you've got small populations and vast land masses, you've got big gaps in terms of being able to provide broadband the traditional way. What's also most interesting that we should also think about is a usage gap, because there's so many places where broadband has been made available, but it's so expensive that people can't use it. And so we not only should be looking at being able to make the broadband available, we should also be able to take a look at making the broadband affordable. And there have been some initiatives which are currently ongoing at pilot phase to take a look at how we can bring down that cost, at least on the African continent. There are a number of countries that have come together and said, okay, hang on. We've got the same suppliers in terms of our undersea cables and our broadband. What happens if these countries buy this connectivity in bulk? And then would that bring the cost down? A feasibility study says that bulk purchase could reduce the cost of broadband by about 50%. If you do that, then now you can provide broadband that people can afford, so that now you reduce the usability gap, the usage gap, as you increase the presence of broadband. Interesting similarities in terms of the challenges I think we're facing on both sides of the pond.
I will let you, Kai. I'm happy to see that Amel Mahlouf, our guest, she finally gets her connectivity on and she is with us. Amel, can you hear us? There is some issue in the connection. Anyway, my next question will be for both of you.
Yes, I hear you. I don't know what happened. In fact, it was
nice.
So
nice.
I start my PC again. Now it's working.
As long as we can hear you and see you, everything is okay. I will let then Garikai follow up with his question. He was waiting for you to be back.
Thank you so much, Salima, and Amel, welcome back to the discussion. Good to be able to chat. Would love the audience to get a sense of who you are, the work that you're doing, and as you answer that question, please just give us a sense of what you think are the most promising green economic sectors on the African continent.
Did I miss the question?
No worries, Amel. Happy to repeat it. Just would love the audience to get a sense of who you are and the work that you're doing. In addition to this, it'll be great for the audience also to get a sense of your thoughts on what the most promising sectors on the African continent are in terms of green economic growth. I think we may have lost Amel at the moment, but I think just to keep the discussion going, I think, Salima, there's an angle of the question that you had asked, which
well, sorry,
I think...
I didn't hear well the question. I don't...
Thanks, Amal. Do you hear me now?
I think
Amal.
Nishi is having issues with her audio.
Yeah,
Well,
no worries.
actually,
Not a problem at all.
The lovely reality of the lives.
Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? No?
Yes, but you are talking off. It's very difficult to for us for the moment. Maybe you can follow up with our tech advisor. He will help you
Because
to.
I'm not on LinkedIn. That's the point. I connected through.
Oh,
No worries. I think Salima, as we get the tech team just to help Amal
yes,
along,
to help Amal.
just to be able to resolve that. If I could just pick up on a discussion, I think that we had started a bit earlier. I think one of the questions that you had asked about before we tackled connectivity was also a question about youth. And I think Tracy had touched on it in terms of investing in the youth by creating this base. And I'd really love to touch on that because I think one of the things that Africa is excited about is its demographic dividend with so many young people and a growing youthful population, which could be useful in terms of development. But I'll be keen, if I can throw it to you, Tracy, in terms of the work that you're doing, to get a sense of the skills that you're helping to develop, especially to code and elements like that. Are you dealing mainly with young people? How do you see that as a benefit for the future?
Yeah, we work with all ages. So we do have classes for youth, as I mentioned. So software development, code, intro to Python and things like that. But we also have just basic computer literacy classes because we found that, there's a gap, as I mentioned, like that was exposed with the pandemic, with many of our seniors now having to access, for example, their telehealth appointments, right? So the basic computer literacy, how to get online and how to schedule an appointment with their physician and access telehealth. You have returning citizens, people who may have been incarcerated who are coming out, and now everything's online with applying for work. So helping them to apply for jobs and how to develop their resume and how to set up email, these things that many of us take for granted. But if you there's quite a large veteran population that are taking classes to learn these basics too, that may have been in a position in the military where they weren't as tech savvy, and now coming out and maybe looking for employment and having to navigate LinkedIn and navigate these different applications and tools. So we really have classes for everyone, but the youth definitely, we feel like if you capture them early and spark that interest early, right? Everything in the digital economy has changed. Digital transformation. I worked on projects, in my work life. I've been in IT project management for years. We've transformed how we shop online, order online, pick up in store. That's pretty much common. Everybody wants that. If you have, if you're in retail, you have to have that technology. Now, much of our, government systems are online. If a senior needs to access, I have both my parents, are seniors, and I've lived this, helping them go online for Social Security to look up their benefits. Like I mentioned, telehealth, when it first started, was so complex for a senior. Now they've simplified that process. Those are all digital transformation processes that we see in everyday life. It's really, some are consumer driven, some are market driven, competitor driven, but you have to have the workforce adapt to it, as well as the consumer side adapt to it. So we really reach and have classes for everyone, for all ages.
No, thank you for that, Tracy. And I think I love the points that you've laid over there, because they do resonate with a lot of the work that we have seen across the African continent. Because one of the things is, when people talk about the jobs of the future, they're taking a look at the young people. And so we talk a lot about Africa's demographic dividend when we say, look, we've got a growing youth population, and that necessarily should translate to innovation. But the reality is that there's also a digital green economy that's alive now. And for those people, we've got so many people who may even be illiterate, but need to be able to understand how to use mobile money, as an example, or online services. And so we also need to be able to build tech for, I think what we say in the digital public infrastructure work is that you're building tech for those with smartphones, because Africa is a mobile first continent. So you're building tech for those with smartphones, but you're also building tech for those with feature phones. And you're also building tech for those with no phones, so that they're also not left out of that digital economy. So what do you do to a rural person who doesn't have a phone, but still needs to be engaged within this? So we begin to build technology that talks to them as well. So I think there's quite a bit to unpack around technology across the board, and not ignoring, not being ageist, if I can say that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. For those, you have a mobile first, but for those who don't have the tools, right? So what are the one of the things they invested in here, as well as those community anchor institutions, where if they don't have the technology at home, they can go to those community centers, they can go to the libraries, they can go to their churches, and they have access to these tools. They have maybe the internet access if they don't have it at home, or they have access to the tools and computers and tablets. A lot of the libraries here now loan those out. So one of the good things about, I think, the pandemic is that it became you really saw the public-private partnership really take off, because you had, like I said, a lot of money came from the administration, the Biden administration, historic investments in broadband, like with BEAD, a broadband equity access deployment program, but also you saw large investments from private organizations giving away Chromebooks and laptops to students, because at first you had a parent at home with having now to get online. You have the student having to do e-learning, and if you're multi-generation, you had a senior doing telehealth, maybe with no internet or slow internet and one or no devices, but you have multiple people. So we really saw that public-private partnership come into play, where there were donations of laptops and tablets. ISPs provided low price broadband, brought the prices down. You mentioned too affordability, subsidies. We had subsidies, which I would really like to see come back. They have since expired, but they had subsidies during COVID, and I think they expired last year, that really helped those in low income areas afford broadband. So we need, on the public sector side, we had federal dollars, but we also had a lot of states that offer that too. So affordability is big, and connectivity, but then in the areas where you have the connectivity, but people just can't afford it. So we have to bring back the subsidies or some help for people to be able to access this technology as well.
If you allow me, Gaika, I will follow up on what just Tracy talking about affordability, and talking about precisely about public-private partnership. We see, and we saw in US a big boom in terms of private-public partnerships last few years. And I want to know, as you have this experience in almost 40 countries in Africa, what is your appreciation of these partnerships happening over there?
I think the reality is that, and thank you for that, Salim. I think the reality is that it's the only way that Africa is able to build its digital transformation, and we've seen some success because what we need is to build public rails, which is the basics that then give the confidence of growth. But it has to be private innovation, because the reality is that the private sector can innovate faster, can innovate better than the public sector, and can distribute capital better than the public sector ever can. And so it has to be a partnership working hand in glove. And so in some of the work that we did, we were trying to reduce the cost of internet in Guinea, Mali, and Sierra Leone. This would have been around 2018, 2019. And so what we're trying to do was to connect the backbones of each of these countries together at the borders, so that now the data can travel seamlessly across the borders in what we called a One Africa network. And so the only way that that was achieved was to do it with the private sector, where the private sector developed models for revenue generation, and then were able to put capital in place for that to happen. The cost of digital transformation, the reality of it is that it's too high for governments to be able to foot themselves. If you think about it, the amount of data that Africa needs to hold for its digital transformation to work is huge. That means they need to build data centers, and Africa only holds, I think, 1 to 2% of the data centers in the world right now, which means that there's a heavy investment that needs to go into there. And if anyone talks to you about data centers, they'll tell you they're not cheap. The only way that that can be done is through public-private partnerships that help to ensure that we're able to build big infrastructure for digital transformation to happen. I've seen good things, just so that I have a hopeful tone. I've seen good things. I've seen good private and public partnerships. We call them private-public partnerships for people. So it's 4Ps. And I'm optimistic, Salima, extremely so.
Nice to hear 4Ps. I heard before 3Ps with the Union for Mediterranean. This is program they have also for the regional development and the cooperation. And we have, going back, the role. Can you tell us more? You just touched a little bit on this subject of regional collaboration in Africa. What is the progress right now, and if we boost this regional collaboration, how the role will be in?
I think it's a brilliant question, because I think there are many layers to it. One which touches a lot of the work that Tracy is doing is capacity building. In that, as one country learns, it can share with another. And so the idea is that there's no need to reinvent the wheel, because the way that digitalization is happening at the moment across the African continent is almost like building a road every time you want to build a building. Because every time you're regurgitating aspects that you could either have learned or picked up from another partner. And so as we bring a lot of this regional cooperation together, we cease to reinvent the wheel, which also makes the cost of digitalization a lot cheaper. Some research, depending on who you talk to, will tell you that you can reduce the cost by between 20 to 50% by bringing countries together. One real example is that in a previous engagement, we did a test in terms of eliminating the cost of telephone roaming in East Africa, what we call East Africa's North Corridor. And so the idea was to see the impact of that on business and on citizens. What we realized was that though telcos initially felt that this would eat into their budgets, there was actually an 800% increase in calls, which meant that they were not losing any revenue. But what that did is that it helped a lot of small businesses become cross-border businesses and now begin to export into the region. And so just using that example, the impact of regional cooperation on business, on governments, but also on citizens, I think can be quite immense. There are quite a few organizations across Africa that are doing good work. The regional blocks like SADC, EAC, ECOWAS are doing great work, but also organizations such as UNECA under the UN or Smart Africa are doing quite some decent work in terms of bringing countries together so that everyone is pulling in the same direction.
Thank you. I hope that our guest Amel can join us and she's back, but until she do, um, we even if we were only three of us, we lost two of our guests today, and I love that we get the time for the first time to go deeper in every speaker talk. Unfortunately, I have question normally addressed to Amel and Sheila, but let's try to address it. We discussing with several experts in Africa regarding the energy needs for the green transition and the transformation they need to do. I have heard several times that Africa is betting on natural gas and energy efficiency first before going all renewables. What do you think, maybe Gary Kai, about that? What's your thought?
Look, I think it's a tough question because there are a lot deeper concerns to think about around this, and I think the one thing is that no one doubts the need to save the planet, and so green transition is something that everyone believes is important. But I think there are a lot of discussions, and I was actually having this discussion just yesterday. There are a lot of discussions around equitable green transition. Because if numbers are to be believed, Africa is currently contributing less than 10% of global emissions at the moment. And so the question becomes, should we burn a little more if it helps to keep our people with their lights on and economies developing? And so Africa continues to bet on the natural resources that are there on the basis that the current model of green transition is not equitable. But again, we have a continent that we have a planet that's suffering. And so we need to find a way in which we make it work. There have been findings of natural gas, but then again, that also requires the investment into the equipment that then can be used to tap into it and begin to deliver it to people to make it work. Technology is one way in which we build new economies with new thinking and therefore not burn as many natural resources as we ordinarily may. And so my view is that digital transformation is our Hail Mary. And that's one way in which we can begin to contribute, firstly, positively to our people's livelihoods, good economics, but also having a good eye on the green transition. It's a tough and layered question. I think it's strong arguments on both sides, but ultimately, I think we need to take a look at making sure that this transition is equitable.
Thank you, Gary Kai. And as I have said, we had so many other topics and sectors to talk about today, but I want to thank very much Tracy for giving us this insight about US youth and digital transformation. This is why, unfortunately, today we are going to maybe, however, we had almost 1 hour talking all together and sharing together. Thank you to Gary Kai for all these insights we had regarding Africa. Thanks to Tracy for all the insight regarding US youth and digital transformation. And I give another meeting date for October 16th. We will come back, but this time we will make sure to have all our guests with us to continue the discussion and touch upon other subjects like energy, climate finance, and carbon market, which is these topics are really booming in Europe, in North America, and Africa. We want to have more information about Africa, readiness to carbon market, readiness to use of climate finance to boost the green transition. And all of these topics, I want to thank our audience for being with us today. And all these topics we'll try to have more insight from experts on October 16 and develop more discussion related to that. Before we say goodbye to our audience and finish our discussion today, I have one question to Garikai and Tracy. If you want the people to remember this discussion in one thought, which key message you want to send out?
I'll just close with, I think, so while digital and building the digital infrastructure is important, that alone won't solve the digital literacy problem. So we have to remember, as we're building out, whether it's the green economy, this green transition, or digital transformation, as we're building out that infrastructure, let's also remember the skills and the literacy skills that go with it. So training the people so that once we have that, the people can have the skills necessary to do the work, right? So let's build that into, as we're building the roles and the infrastructure, whether it's digitally or physically.
Absolutely. I'm inclined to agree with Tracy, and I think I'm going to lean in that same direction, in that we are existing in a place where the future is uncertain. I think we have hope, but the reality of it is that we need to invest in the people. If we invest in the people, it gives us the confidence that should any curved ball come in the future, they're able to pivot. That means even if new skills are required, we've taught them how to learn new skills, which is more or less the work that Tracy is doing. And so they're now able to build on that and continue to learn new skills. And so the end result should be for the people, and the investment should be in the people. Thanks for that, Salima.
Thank you, Garikai. Unfortunately, I don't know, Amel, our guest, she's having really difficulties to join, but probably we have to wait for her to give us all her thought and experience and insight about climate finance on October 16. And I invite everyone to join us and follow us on LinkedIn and follow us on YouTube to get the updates about our next discussions, which I invite everyone to join and share. Thank you, Garikai. Thank you to the team for trying to get our guests on our virtual studio. Thank you, Tracy. Until then, I wish from all of us to our audience best health and a wonderful week. And we promise you to come back on October 16. Until then, stay healthy. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.